Now we go to Shelby County, Tennessee, a program called Building for the Future with Mr. Robert Sprecher and Mr. A.C. Wharton, Jr. Mr. Sprecher.
Good afternoon. As the Director of Corrections in Shelby County, Tennessee, and on behalf of my colleague A.C. Wharton, the Chief Public Defender of Shelby County, I want to thank you for inviting us to present Building for the Future's Collaborative to the panel today. As you might guess by my accent, I'm not a native Memphian. Before settling in Tennessee 2 years ago, during a 10-year consulting career, I helped plan, construct, and activate correctional facilities in places as far apart as Oswego County, New York, and Los Angeles, California. I've developed master plans for correctional systems in Omaha, Pittsburgh, Durham, North Carolina, and Atlanta, Georgia, to name just a few places. All communities with prisons and jails that I know personally could benefit from Building for the Future programs. Everyone in the United States has heard discouraging statistics concerning criminal recidivism. The Rand Corporation recently reported that in California, 76% of released inmates were arrested again within 3 years of their return to the free world. 60% were convicted of new crimes. The numbers in Texas are very similar. There, 60% of ex-convicts were rearrested in 3 years and 40% were convicted of new crimes. A Justice Department study of 22 states in the United States found that 69% of young adults were rearrested within 6 years of their release. Each averaged 13 new crimes while they were free. Now, Building for the Future began as a means to teach inmates marketable skills and reduce recidivism. To date, more than 500 men and women sentenced to prison have been taught carpentry, masonry, and life skills by local union vocational instructors and prison staff. Learning metal stud framing and panelized home construction has changed their lives. Since the BFF program began, the Division of Corrections has been tracking a randomly selected group of non-participating inmates and inmate graduates of the carpentry programs following their release from prison. Over that 5-year period, 71% of the control group have been rearrested compared to only 45% of the BFF graduates. Even more importantly, only 22% of the graduates have been sent back to prison compared with 49% of the inmates in the control group. As a rehabilitation program, BFF has succeeded remarkably. In very real terms, Shelby County has seen Building for the Future have a significant effect on recidivism in inmates returning to our community. In addition, BFF has proven to employers, neighborhood groups, and local government that inmates can benefit from their imprisonment and move on to productive, law-abiding lives as taxpayers rather than tax users. Mr. Wharton will now tell you a little bit about the community issues that BFF has confronted in its history.
Thank you, Rob. Good afternoon. I spend most of my time in the courtroom, so if I happen to refer to you as Your Honor, I hope you will not be offended.
This is the National Press Club, you know.
Thank you.
We rarely use words like that around here.
Well, I will.
I speak as a member of the press.
Thank you.
We won't dock that time.
I appreciate that. Oddly enough, there are 12 of you as if there's a jury, but I rest my faith there. As Rob indicated, I'm going to touch on some of the local aspects. One of the things I understand from the guidelines, and that is how easy can this program be replicated. Someone said yesterday that we come to sessions like this, and there are two types. There are folks who said, oh, we've done that. There are others who say, that'll never work in my jurisdiction. Let me touch on the latter first. We faced in Shelby County all of the obstacles that should have caused us ordinarily to say it'll never work. Shelby County is a conservative place, not one much given to trying new things, particularly when it comes to how you deal with crime. The instance that we had here was it was viewed that this is soft on crime. It is not. These men serve their time. These women serve their time. It's not a question of how much time they serve, it's a question of how well they serve their time. Insofar as the collaborative aspect is concerned, there's something here in a positive sense for everybody. Labor, which is with us 100% on this, saw that this was in their interest. Usually you would expect labor to fight this kind of thing because, oh, those men are taking our jobs. Labor was able to see that it was only going to be able to answer the call of management for skilled workers when it could replenish that supply. We had a shortage of that in Shelby County. This program addresses that. On the housing front, we have houses boarded up, communities boarded up. That's nonsense when there are men and women who are begging to work. It answers both of those. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Bill Klinger.
I know the program's only been in operation for 5 years, but do you have any data on job retention once these people go out into the job market and get a job? Anything to show how long they keep the job?
Yes, we do. We can talk more about how many people we've placed than we can the follow-up studies of how many people retain the first job that they get. What we're finding over the 5-year period is that they don't always stay in construction. As a matter of fact, only a few of them do stay in construction. But with a robust economy, they've learned the work skills and they've learned the day-to-day kinds of activities of getting up at a certain time and going to bed at a certain time that allows them to go on to other jobs in the Memphis and Shelby County area.
Vin Weber.
I just wonder if you could comment at all on the reaction of people that might look upon this program as providing competition to them, either contractors, private sector contractors, or the building and trades unions, who in a way also see competition provided. How have you dealt with that?
I'll be more than glad to, Congressman. As soon as I got in yesterday, someone flashed a copy of USA Today in my face. I hadn't read it yet. There was this article about prison labor, and it touches on that point. We undertook special care to make certain that the projects we were using these men and women were jobs that would not have been done anyway. We found a lot that's been vacated, absentee ownership, there's nobody there, no taxes being paid. A house could be built, but the private sector is not willing to. And we made sure that the activities, the jobs they undertake are not jobs that would have been performed in the private sector anyway. And furthermore, these men and women volunteer for this program. This is not a paid program in competition with the private sector, either in terms of people who build houses or the laborers who work on these sites.
Have you seen any measurable reduction in the crime rates in the county?
Yes.
Is it too early?
Well, the size of this program with 500 inmates is really pretty small. We've seen significant reductions in the crime rate in the county because we're doing a number of other things in concert with this. Moral recognition therapy or intensive life skills program. We run the largest therapeutic community in prison in the state of Tennessee. We run a very large residential substance abuse program and an anti-gang program at the same time. All of those, I think, have contributed to a reduction in crime.
Mm-hmm. Has there been an interest on the part of the state legislature or the governor's office in the program?
There has. As a matter of fact, the governor's chief of staff met with me last week about replicating this in other Tennessee prisons. The Knox County, home of the Tennessee Volunteers, is very interested in seeing this program replicated, and I've had telephone calls since we were awarded our finalist status from Austin, Texas, and Orange County, Florida.
Terrific. Dot Ridings.
I noticed that you have a women in construction program as part of this, but I wasn't sure how significant that was, and didn't the guidelines get kind of loosened up to be able to, no?
Not really. This was something that we started about 1.5 years ago, because when we started Panel Plant 1 and then the Roof Truss Manufacturing Program, we couldn't really mix male and female inmates in the spaces that we had. So we decided that we would go out and seek a grant for women in construction, teaching them how to hang drywall and tape sheetrock and paint and wallpaper and do those sorts of things. We've run 2 classes through, and one of the more recent projects that the women completed was the complete gutting and then refinishing of an old firehouse that's now a community center in one of Memphis's neighborhoods.
Wasn't there a difference between the male and female participants in terms of the substance abuse program or something of that nature?
The women were much more likely to be substance abusers than the men.
I had a follow-up question, which, if you all could both, I'm still trying to come to grips with the use of prison labor and how we should think about that philosophically. You know, we make a lot of criticisms in this country about buying goods from from the prison labor in China. How should we think about prison labor in the United States?
If I might, and let me be as deliberate on that as I can, because that certainly concerned me as a legal services lawyer and as a defense lawyer. But we came to the realization that we're representing the same men and women over and over and over again. We're spending more and more money each time they go in. Why not take that time, use it productively, but in a manner that also benefits the community? Again, the key point here, the definition of prison labor generally has been it is supplanting private sector labor. We're not doing that at all. This is not being done to drive down the cost so that someone on the outside has an unfair economic advantage. It is a training program. It gives them a skill. It actually inures to the benefit of society as a whole because the chance of recidivism is much less.
Mr. Wharton and Mr.